Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be talking about potential tropical cyclone 1 that can impact across portions of southern Florida over the next day or two, bringing a lot of rain, potential for tornadoes, and some gusty winds down there as well. Before we get started on this video, if you guys like weather related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we might have one more update on this tropical system as well, so definitely stay tuned for any more updates I could have on here on the channel as well. We're going to start with the watch warning advisory display. You know what? For the majority of the country, we are pretty much quiet, really. There's some issues out parts of the western U.S., but those are very isolated. Flooding issues possible for portions of Washington and Oregon, and the fire weather issues over portions of southern Nevada and northwestern Arizona. But the big story today is going to be what's going to be going on in southern Florida over the next day or two. These red boxes are tropical storm warnings. We are expected to see a tropical storm to develop that could happen as early as today or maybe tomorrow, depending on how it can get organized. There's going to be some obstacles this system here will have to dodge before it can really strengthen um, as well. Here's the SPC Outlook here for today. Got three slight risk areas. You got one for the southern part of Florida. That's going to be part of that tropical system. The main threat down there will be tornadoes down there. There's another slight risk over portions of the Carolinas. Really, the main threat's going to be damage winds there. There might be some small hail. And then you got this large slight risk area over eastern Colorado, New Mexico, into portions of western Texas. And the main threat over there is going to be damage winds and large hail. And some of that hail could be significant out there as well. So really, there's going to be a decent amount of activity out there today. Right now, most of the country is quiet, but that could change for portions of Carolinas and areas over just east of the Rockies later today. Day two, which is tomorrow, got two large risk areas. You got one for southern Florida that's going to be part of that tropical system. The main threat down there will be isolated tornadoes. And then you got another March risk for portions of the central and southern plains. And I do believe, uh, looks like damage winds or hail. Almost said all hazards are possible, but doesn't look to be a tornado risk out there, at least at this time anyway. Still plenty of time for changes. We're not surprised if we see a slight risk upgrade for southern Florida once again um, for day two outlook tomorrow. Day three, which is Sunday, got a large risk over portions of the plains into portions of the Ozarks um, as well. And I think damage winds and hail would be the primary hazards over those areas. But there's still plenty of time for changes on that day as well. But the big story is going to be potential tropical cyclone 1, which is located just to the northeast of that little tip of Mexico. So it's now currently over the Gulf of Mexico at this point, and it could strengthen a little bit more before it gets to Florida. You also know there's another disturbance just to the southwest of Bermuda. Very low probabilities, a 10% chance for probabilities. I believe that's Invest 92L that is out there. But then again, chances of development looks to be slim to none. But then again, the main story is going to be potential tropical cyclone 1, which will likely become tropical storm Alex later today, which sustained winds on the system here is actually 40 miles per hour, which is tropical storm territory. So I'm not sure why they've named this, haven't named this a tropical storm yet. Maybe it doesn't have the characteristics for it just yet. I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, we do at least expect a tropical storm out of this later today, which here's their latest forecast cone, which you can see here. They do expect this to become a tropical storm. It may weaken a little bit when it gets over Florida, but rarely right after Florida, there's still some decently warm um, sea surface temperatures out there. So there's a chance it may strengthen a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to get too far with strengthening. But you also notice here Bermuda could get some impacts out of the storm as well, but probably by that point it may be a subtropical storm at that point as well, which means that this low here may become more of a frontal low than a tropical low by that point. You also notice these blue shades out here over portions of Cuba, southern Florida, and the Bahamas. Those are tropical storm warnings that are out there. But really, I think the biggest issue is going to be that flooding potential, which this is the flood risk over the next 3 days here from the Weather Prediction Center. They got a moderate risk over the southern part of Florida, which includes places like Key West and Miami. Fort Lauderdale's in there as well, which it means there's at least a 40% probability for some flash flooding out there. So there's a pretty decent risk that is out there. But those rainfall totals could be a little bit excessive. Well, I guess you could say for some people it may be pretty excessive. But anyway, in those orange shades, that's 6 to 10 inches of rain potentially. So that is a lot of rain that's in the forecast. I mean, even 4 to 6 inches of rain, which is in the yellow shade, is a lot of rain by itself. But 6 to 10 inches is quite a bit of rain. There's even some isolated areas that may get well over 10 inches of rain out there as well, which is in those red shades. But those are very isolated areas out there as well. But regardless of how much rain you can see in Southern Florida, I think everybody's got an opportunity to see flooding. Pretty much everybody south of Orlando in the Tampa Bay area. I think everybody south of that will have a decent opportunity to see some flooding issues out there as well. Storm surge could be an issue out there. This is their peak storm surge forecast. You can see here, not very impressive when it comes to storm surge, 1 to 2 feet generally, but there could be a couple areas that could see up to 3 feet of storm surge out there, like between Marco Island and Cart Sound Bridge out there as well. Could see up to 3 feet of storm surge out there, but I don't think storm surge would be too big of an issue out there as well. But here's your wind speed probabilities. This is tropical storm force wind probabilities from the National Hurricane Center. You can see here 30%, 40% chance, kind of on the lower end, but there's still the possibility for tropical storm force winds. You can see here they got higher probabilities where the center of the storm is, but you get lower confidence as you get closer to Florida. And I'm going to show you guys why there's lower confidence out there here in a little bit. Well, we can actually kind of talk about that right now. But this is satellite imagery, infrared satellite imagery. You got a lot of thunderstorm activity on the eastern side of the system here, but really I wanted to pay attention to is what's going on out there. You notice here, you got clouds moving in different directions, and these upper level clouds are kind of moving to the north, meanwhile clouds in the lower levels are kind of moving the opposite direction. So you got winds in the upper levels that could be going north, and clouds in the lower levels are coming from the opposite direction, kind of moving south. So you got a lot of wind shear that's going on out there, and that's going to be one of the bigger uncertainties with the system here is going to be that wind shear. The center, the low pressure system, the center of the low, it's actually right here. It's not within this convection out here. And I do believe most of the time with this system's lifetime is that most of the convection is going to be on the eastern side of this system as well. So it's pretty disorganized for the time being out there. So let's check out the tracks from the hurricane models. And you can see here with the tracks, very strong agreement that's it's going to impact Southern Florida, most definitely. And you notice here beyond that point, Bermuda is right here. And there's a chance that Bermuda can get some impacts out of the system as well. So if anybody's watching for Bermuda, definitely have to keep an eye on the system as well over the next day or two. Because you guys could see some impacts. And I think the main threat out there for Bermuda is going to be heavy rainfall, but there's also that possibility for some gusty winds. There may be a little bit severe weather potentially out of it as well. Here's the intensity guidance forecast from the hurricane models. They do a good job on the tracks of the system, but the intensity, that's a different story out there. But you can see here with the intensity guidance here, majority of them do agree at least a tropical storm would be expected. We're not really expecting a hurricane out of this. I think it's going to mainly stick around tropical storm strength. And I think it will weaken a little bit when it hits land in the southern part of Florida. But afterwards, I think there's a chance it may strengthen just a little bit as well. Which, you know what, we can try to look and see what the ocean temperatures are out there right now. We get to the Western Atlantic. Here you go. you can see here where it's at or where it's located. You got pretty favorable sea surface temperature anomalies. 28 degrees Celsius is pretty favorable, but you can see here on the east side of Florida, it's actually a little bit cooler out there. But really, temperatures above a 26 or a 27 is considered favorable for tropical systems. But in the green, which is like 26 or below, it's not really favorable for strengthening for tropical systems. So there will be some uncertainty as it gets to the east of Florida. But really, west of Florida, sea surface temperatures seem favorable for tropical development out there as well. But wind shear is a big issue. If we check out the GFS model when it comes to wind shear, those red colors indicate strong wind shear out there, at least 50 knots of wind shear. So that's some strong wind shear out there. But on the east side of the system, not so much. That's where a lot of your thunderstorms are going to be located, is on the east side of the system. You know, on the west side of the system, there's a lot of wind shear this system here's got to go through. You can see it whenever it makes landfall, maybe later today or tomorrow. You can see here there's still a lot of wind shear out there, especially on the north side of Florida. You got wind shear of at least 50 knots. And when it gets past Florida, still got a lot of wind shear on the north side here. But you notice here the GFS says it wants to strengthen it just a little bit when it gets east of Florida. And I think that may be partially due to some of those slightly warmer sea surface temperatures that could be out there. There's also not a whole lot of wind shear on the south side, so there may be an opportunity for some strengthening out there. But at this point here, this is going to become more of a subtropical low. So it's going to become more of a frontal system than a tropical low by itself. So really, when it passes Bermuda, it doesn't have any threat to land after Bermuda, after that point as well. There's also some dry air out there. This is the relative humidity. You can see here in those green shades, that's where we have a lot of moisture. That's good for tropical systems, which covers a good chunk of southern Florida, Cuba, and even the Bahamas. However, to the west, you got a good amount of dry air, which also covers the northern part of Florida out there too. So not only does this here will be fighting wind shear, it's also going to fight some dry air as well. So that's why the west side system, at least for the most part anyway, should be mostly dry out there. There can be some cloud cover out there, but I think it's going to be mainly partly cloudy skies on the west side of that system. Meanwhile, on the east side system, it's a completely different story. You got a lot of rain that's going on with thunderstorms that can also produce some isolated tornadoes or water spouts. Either way works. You can see here when it passes Florida, you can see here it's now starting to wrap in a little bit more dry air around the center circulation with that system as well. We'll have to wait to see if it strengthens after Florida. And you can see here with that low here how it does impact Bermuda. And if this solution were to verify here, Bermuda, you may not see too much rain out of the system. But it seems like when the center circulation gets over you, gusts generally mostly dry. However, you could see some stronger winds with some of that dry air out there as well. You can see here when it passes Bermuda, by that point, yeah, you can tell here by the rate of humidity that's more of a frontal low. So here's your surface low right here. Here it's its boundary right here, or your cold front or stationary front is out here. And you got your warm front that's situated out here. So by this point here, it's more of a frontal system than a tropical system by that point as well. Let's check out the GFS and we'll put a different website here from windy.com. We're actually going to kind of focus in on those sustained winds out there. So from the surface here, which models, especially medium range guidance, doesn't have the best handle for it. But you can see here, most of your strong winds should be on the east side of the system. If we move on to about midnight tonight, you see our surface low is just to the northern tip of Cuba. And at around this time here, parts of Florida should get some shower and thunderstorm activity out there. If you look at the European model at the same time, a tad bit to the northwest, but not really a big difference here between the GFS and the European model. But they both do agree on the shower thunderstorm activity likely be impacting the southern portion of Florida. If we move on to 12 o'clock here, this is when it could make landfall. It could be near Cape Coral the center circulation. That's where, at least what the European model says, me on GFS is a bit, it's actually faster. It's got the center circulation already past Florida. It's on the East Coast. And I think I like the European model a little bit better because GFS does have some progression issues out there. So I'm going to kind of follow along with the European model with the slower solution. I think it handles the speed a little bit better. But you can see here, most of your thunderstorm activity will be on the east side of the system and not on the west side. You see it from the European model, and the GFS is pretty similar with that as well. But let's talk about sustained winds. Here's the European model. Some of your strong winds is going to be on the east side of the system, which you can see your sustained winds could be tropical storm force, nearing 40 miles per hour from the European model. Meanwhile, GFS, you know what, it's kind of similar, just a little bit weaker. But then again, models do not have a good handle when it comes to sustained winds, mainly the medium range guidance. If we could check out a couple other models like the HER model, for example, that's actually wind gusts. But talking about sustained winds, you got sustained winds up to 50 miles per hour from the HER model, which is pretty interesting out there. But you also notice much of your shower thunderstorm activity is also on the east side of the system as well. It also kind of follows along with the GFS model too, which is also pretty interesting as well. You can see here should move out away from Florida sometime by later in the day on Saturday um, as well. But depending on the speed of the system can determine how strong the system could be before it makes landfall. If it were to be the European model, it have more time to strengthen before it makes landfall in some part of Florida. Now, if it were to be the GFS or the HER model, it could be a little bit weaker. So there's that. And you can see here, really by Sunday, most of Florida should be dry by that point. Let's talk about those rainfall totals. There's going to be a lot of rain with this system. You can see here, pretty much around Cape Coral and just to the south. What the European model says could be anywhere from 4 to 7 inches of rain. That's quite a bit of rain. It's even got an area of 8 inches of rain near Cape Coral or Marco Island. Marco Island, European model says closing on 10 inches of rain. How about the GFS? Well, you got some similar totals out there. It's not as excessive, but still a lot of rain regardless. 4 to 7 inches of rain from the GFS. How about the higher resolution model guidance? Like the HER model. Yeah, it's got rainfall amounts up to 18 inches. Now, I think that's a bit too high for my taste. I don't think we're going to see 18 inches of rain. But regardless here, if we do see this much rain out here, that could be potentially catastrophic rainfall because this is all happening kind of in a short time frame, kind of a 24-hour period, or a little bit more than that. How about the high-res NAM? It's one taken on a much more over track here, which I kind of disagree with. But regardless of that, the exterior still suggests a lot of rain. I mean, well over a foot of water is a lot. And the last one is the Icon model. If we check that out, you can see here it's got some higher rainfall totals, but a little bit more to the south here. But what all these models have in common, despite the track, is a lot of rain. There's a good agreement for a general swath of 4 to 7 inches of rain. But there can be isolated areas that could get a little bit over 10 inches of rain out there as well. So you got that possibility out there as well. So if you do live in Southern Florida, I'll be more prepared for flooding really than anything else out there because a lot of rain is likely to be coming for you guys. But you also do have to contend with the potential for some tropical storm force winds, which could lead to some tree damage. You also got to contend with for the potential for rotating thunderstorms that can produce tornadoes out there as well. So that's going to be another threat to keep an eye on as well. But anyways, guys, that's all for guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit that like button if you like my channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put a comment section down below. Or if you guys questions, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.